Well, hi, everybody. This is Jeff, and our topic tonight is on intent. And for people potentially listening to this recording in the future, I have described the topic on our site as, in the universe, there is an immeasurable, indescribable force, which shamans call intent. And absolutely everything that exists in the entire cosmos is attached to intent by a connecting link. So that is our topic tonight. I'll mention a few words about that briefly after I get a brief introduction from each person on the call. So we have some very good people on the call tonight. And I'll start with Ian. If you could just briefly introduce yourself, Ian, that would be great.
Ian Ferguson. I mentioned that I started in 1987 in Los Angeles. Studied a little bit in New York in 1990 at Westchester and SUNY. And let's see, I think that's about it. A wonderful path with an amazing teacher.
Oh, thanks, Ian. Thank you. And yeah, it's fine just to use first names, but whatever you wish. And then Alfred, could you say a few words about yourself?
Yeah. So I studied with Rama in 1989 to 91, and then I studied with you, Jeff, for about 10 years in New York for the Monday night class.
Yes, and Alfred's a very interesting guy, to say the least. And so happy to have you on the call, Alfred.
Oh, great.
And Sharon, anything to say?
Yeah, hi, I'm Sharon. I'm in New York. I studied with Rama, I think, 1990 to maybe 92 in Westchester. Most of the meetings at SUNY Purchase. And, yeah, I've sort of been disconnected and away from everybody for a while, and I'm so glad to find you guys again.
Oh, thanks, Sharon. And Tara, would you like to say a few words?
My name's Tara, and I started studying with Rama early 90s for sure. I can't remember the exact year, but I met him in New York, and studied with him all along, and still consider him my teacher. So it's great. I've attended one of these other calls, and it was just great to talk with like-minded people, I guess. It was inspiring. So.
Oh, thanks, Tara. Were you on one of my calls? I'm pretty sure you were, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think I missed the Thanksgiving call, but the one before that.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm glad you're on the call. And the infamous Mark, do you have any words to say, Mark?
No. I don't have anything to say.
Mark says, man, a few words. Well, good. I know Mark also studied with Rama in the early 80s. And I think that I'll say a few words. I want to, definitely the meditation can be very important tonight. This topic, as usual, is a huge topic. Turns out picking of all these 20 classes or so, the virtual classes so far, picking these immense topics so we can, we'll pick up on some things about them. And I think it's as I mentioned, my qualifier is that please take everything I say with a grain of salt. The idea is to have as much fun as possible, to make ourselves available to a certain extent, and to stay attentive. The idea is to be relaxed and to let go And yes, it's always interesting to notice, and I'll mention these things I think on this talk, and also, towards the end of the talk, that our awareness field will be potentially affected in some way. That's actually part of the what I mentioned on the website for this talk, and it's just interesting and fascinating to kind of notice these things about how awareness flows and how different things can affect the awareness field, which is very pertinent to our topic tonight. I'll be talking about our connecting link with intent, cleaning our connecting link with intent. If I haven't mentioned it, this topic is based on a wonderful book, The Power of Silence by Carlos Castaneda. It's just some amazing material. It's one of my favorite books, and I find it to be just immensely powerful book. And we'll mention a few things about that on the talk. I do want to, of course, express a particular spin on this topic that I've noticed in my own self-discovery, and also I always express or try the best I can do to express the particular spin that Rama has put on this material. He is very big on this material, as everybody on the call knows. And most importantly, I'm interested in what everybody on the call has to say about the topic, and then can express, their various, experience, direct experience with any aspects of the topic. And like I said, this is I feel very important for people to hear, that are interested and have an affinity towards this type of knowledge. So, hope everybody's set. That's going to set up for Mandala of Light, which is this wonderful music by Zazen. The type of energy that they've expressed is just so important, as we all know, in our interfacing with the what I call the Rama material. The type of power in each of these albums has a particular feel to it, and can be very helpful, obviously, in our meditation, in our mindfulness practice, and so on, in our self-discovery. So let me bring up the Mandala of Light. So we are going to do 2 tracks. So we'll start with track 1, The Kelpie Journey, and then we'll do track 3, Tibetan Rhapsody. So if everybody on the call who are listening to this in the recording, if you can stand up, sit up straight with your back straight is the main idea, and like I mentioned, stay pretty calm and relaxed, and can focus on to at least initially to your breathing, if you wish to, or a particular chakra, if you wish. I'm thinking for our purposes tonight, may initially maybe focus. Well, might as well focus on my favorite chakra, which would be at least initially, and then let go of that, which would be the third eye, the 6th chakra. But if you feel like focusing on the heart chakra to begin with, that'd be great too. I think that'd be good. And we're talking about here, I think it's about almost 14 minutes. So we'll start our meditation in about 10 seconds. And I will mute everybody. Okay. I don't think has anybody else joined us? I don't think so. Well, good. And then we'll have either, toward the end of the meditation, probably do at least 2 tracks and see how things go. If everybody might be up for 3 tracks, but they say in these classes, and it's part of our topic, just I think some amazing things happen in these types of classes. And it's something that we can take with us. So I always pay attention. I try to stay very mindful of what I feel during the class, and then also what I feel when we leave the class. I'll mention a few things about meditation after the class, having to do with building up our momentum. I'm very big on building up momentum in our meditation, and I've learned some things about it just from my own kind of exploration, and obviously always interested, especially for this call, the different things that you've discovered. And I'll say a few words about the Castaneda material, the power of silence, some of the things. I'll say a few words and then a few other things, then we'll open up for our discussion. So I'm always learning how to tighten things up. As I mentioned on this call, talking is a powerful thing, but it has to be done in a tight way, strategic and tight. And I'm sure we all have our ways of doing that and knows things about talking to people and or in a setting like this, how the energy flows. I've read Power of Silence many times and highly recommend the book. And for this particular talk, I mainly just referenced one chapter, The Descent of the Spirit. Just something I was drawn to, just to remind me of the material. And but many times I'll just pick up the book and reread it again. And as we all know, when we do that, whether it's a time period of a year later or 20 years later, that we can still and discover very interesting things about the book that we didn't discover before on that previous readings. So it's always fun to notice that. In particular, I do talk about in these classes almost all the time, talk about intent, and kind of my idea in these classes is always working on the month before the class, in various ways working on the intent for the class. So building up a sort of feel for what I might be, in particular, be passionate about or be interested to express in a class like this. And then when we all join the class, when we're all engaged, we're all involved with that intent in certain ways. And but for this purpose of the class, I'm asking, obviously, everybody not to really worry about that particular intent, but obviously come to the class with a positive intent. And, really don't have to, it's so big, I discovered in these classes and over the years, this idea of letting go and not really trying too hard, but at the same time, being very focused and definitely, big on self-effort. So it's a delicate kind of intricate type of balance in there to let go at the same time, to be very, very, attentive and available. So I'm sure everybody is working on that or understands that in their own particular way. And maybe in our discussion session, can comment on anything really coming up tonight in this topic here. The silent knowledge, which is nothing but direct contact with intent. So this idea of obviously stopping the internal dialogue, stopping thought. The precursor is slowing down thought, but this has a lot to do with the cleaning up and tidying up our connecting link with intent. Now, intent is different than will. There's the concept of stalking ourselves, where we actually give, that's a huge topic in itself, and there's multiple, many things involved with stalking. But in particular, for the purposes of this talk, stalking ourselves has to do with giving ourselves a jolt using our behavior in a ruthless and cunning way. And I'll just leave it at that. Ruthless and cunning is obviously meant to be a strategic thing. It's not meant to be anything more than that. But the words are important. They do suggest something, but it's really about being very strategic and very focused. To stop thinking by intending the movement of our assemblage point. So this idea of a point of perception, a point of assemblage of perception, Rama also referred to that as, I believe, or it's somewhat equated with the perceptual nodal points, as he mentions in Snowboarding to Nirvana, which is a wonderful book. I'm sure each of you have probably read many times. So we talked about, we're talking about it in a separate topic, but the assemblage point we actually talked about at various times, but I think in particular either the last talk or the one before that, we talked about the place of no pity, which is a very interesting assemblage point that we all naturally have experience with, whether we get into the area of that assemblage point, or we actually are right on it. It's a very interesting thing. Intent is beckoned with the eyes. I just wanted to mention that because I noticed that. I mean, working with Rama when I first started off years ago in Lakshmi, especially meditating with Rama in the meditation hall, the eyes were so important. He would meditate many times with his eyes open. And maybe people can comment on that later. And obviously there's a certain powerful transmission of Shakti energy and all sorts of things. It's definitely, it's quite obvious the awareness field is effective, like big time in the meditation hall with Rama. But I know some interesting things about the eyes, the shining of the eyes. There's just endless things to say about it. But it is interesting that in this book in particular, The Power of Silence, the shining of the eyes in particular, there's just so much that the eyes, both in the sense of what the eyes see in the physical, but also what the eyes are connected in the subtle physical, and especially connected with intent. And maybe I'll say some things maybe if I remember what I noticed about that. And obviously it's for a discussion topic. But these different ways of actually getting involved with intent is really what I'm trying to bring across. And the best I can in such a brief time period. That is so important. Once again, connecting somehow, feeling our connection with this unbelievable, I guess even inconceivable type force in the universe. The greater the shine of the eyes, the more ruthless the sorcerer is, in the sense of ruthless meaning just more adept the particular practitioner is. Having to do when we notice that kind of powerful, sparkly shining in people's eyes. It's so different to each person. You probably have noticed that throughout our lives. And there's just something very fascinating about that. I've always wondered about when I was just a kid and also getting involved in meditation and so on. Just a few more things about the book, and I'll mention a few things that I've discovered, then we'll have our discussion. Sorcerers believe that in order to make their assemblage point shift to precise spots, we must engage intent. Since there is no way of knowing what intent is, sorcerers let their eyes beckon it. So once again, with the eyes, but also this beckoning is a very important concept that I use myself to remind myself about what is going on when I start getting involved with intent. And it is to me a type of beckoning, and hard to describe, but I think we all kind of have a feel for what that might mean. And please express that on the discussion. There's just endless ways. I always maintain endless ways to connect with intent, but I always maintain it is particular to the way we each are individually. I feel that we're individually structured, this deep structuring that we refer to many times on these calls, which is the the deep causal structure, that deep DNA that Rama describes, that is constantly being transformed, potentially via light and meditation and access to power and so on. It's so unique to each person, and that unique expression I've always enjoy noticing in people. So that would also suggest a unique type of way of people connecting with intent. Yes, I mentioned before when I first started talking that the cleaning, this concept of cleaning our connecting link with intent is so important. So many interesting things to say about that. In the book, Don Juan, the teacher of Carlos Castaneda, mentions that basically he's a pretty direct person apparently. Basically he said to Carlos Castaneda that basically your link is dead. Your spirit is dead. He didn't mince words, it looks like, but he also was laughing as he was saying that, I think, and just trying to be direct and be truthful, but at the same time, have fun with Carlos so that he would let go more and be able to understand these things that he's trying to present. I've said this in previous calls a few times that Rama gave us, the people that work with him, many positions of the assemblage point, which I feel is a type of gift. And it's something he actually mentioned in close to the last seminar with him it was either 1997. He might have mentioned that towards the end of 1997, I believe, actually in the Kala Chakra meditation. So this is a very important thing and that's the reason I'm mentioning it. It has to do with assemblage points, which I have referenced, but it's something that Rama said he directly actually gave to people that work with him. And it's a gift that the good news is it's a gift. I see this as a gift that keeps on giving. And people are interfacing with the people that work with Rama, directly interfacing with Rama, who they never even met in the physical, and so on. So there's no everybody has a shot at this. If they're interested, whether they directly physically met Rama or not. I feel, my own experience throughout the years. Maybe I'll say a few more things about that. But there's a way of actually connecting into the deeper subtle physical, into these points of these perceptual points, assemblage of perception, is an amazing study that I think is really forever. Basically, there's so much to continually learn about it. It seems to be endless and infinite. But it's something that we all can, that everybody has a shot at, I feel. And that's I think it's really good news. And there's a kind of a modeling, as I suggested before in previous talks, that I feel takes place when people actually interface with somebody that's been actually realigned, transformed by somebody, by these unique teachers like Rama and others like them out there. I think they're very rare teachers, but there's some sort of very deep transformation that goes on when there's a direct interface, interaction with a teacher like that, whether it's just for a few hours or for many years. And other people can pick up on that, I feel, via the second attention. That's why there's so much hope for people who wish to access that kind of knowledge. I personally have decided to explore how to access these perceptual nodal points or points of assemblage, and what are the implications or ramifications of doing so based on my connecting link with intent. So that's the intent is like the other half of the equation, just as a way of talking. But intent is so important in actually being able to access, I feel, these inner points in our perceptual field. These virtual classes I give are based on intent, and each of us feels the ramifications, not because of me, not at all, But I have a role to play, maybe a small role that I always kind of watch from time to time. But each of us, of course, coming to these classes, have a role to play too. I feel we're all obviously involved in the perception of that takes place in this hour and a half period. And but it's the intent, this amazing force that we're all connecting into, is that we're seeing the ramifications of. And I think it's unique for each of these classes, and the other classes that other teachers get, and so on. It has a particular look and feel, just based on many factors during that period of the class. And each participant is involved in some way. And there's maybe a type of group perception of some sort. And I always remind everybody, please make yourself available to an extent and attentive, and please don't try to do anything. I remember with Rama, and I was always trying to mention to other people on the call, actually, in different ways. I would always with Rama try to figure out, okay, what should I do? Should I try this? Should I think this way? Focus over there? What, And it's all well and good because Rama's just blow through all that stuff, as we all know here on the call. But it did, unfortunately, get in the way at times. My different attempts at trying to make sense of things using thought and using my conceptual abilities and intellect. And all well and good. I mean, everybody does that probably to some extent. But obviously, we know that can get in the way. But a certain amount of it is actually necessary. We do want to make a sense of these things. We just, as human beings, want to do that, apparently, and I don't see anything wrong with that. In fact, it's important to make a certain amount of sense. Use our reasoning mind in that regard. It's important, actually. I feel the flow of awareness, as I mentioned, I use this terminology, flow of awareness, that we are engaged with is affected in some way. I mentioned other things. I do have noticed some really interesting things about the way awareness flows, and I'm going to constantly talk about it in subsequent talks. And it's always fun to hear what people have to say about it. We notice it and observe it or perceive it, and I feel we're guided in some way, and also correspondingly act in some way. So another big subject, we actually had a class on the nature of acting, and it's controversial, I think. It's like, and I get some interesting comments when we talk about the nature of acting, and it's a big subject. Who's the actor? What should we really be acting, or what? So it's really, I think, an interesting subject that we'll definitely will be approaching in different ways throughout these talks. But this concept of being guided, I feel, is just so important because once again we get engage our intellect and reasoning mind. We think that we can somehow guide things, and obviously we're involved in some way that we're constantly going to be observing ourselves in our self-discovery. But literally what I feel happens when we enter into deeper awareness fields and reality and so on, and touch into some energy formations that I'm going to mention briefly before our discussion. I'm almost there. That literally the awareness, the power, whatever we're actually engaging with, does indeed guides us. I feel I'm interested in what you have to say, and so it's really not a problem about what we're being guided, and if we could feel that, obviously it's important to notice that, I feel, and to feel where that might take us. But it does take a lot of the pressure off that somehow we have to figure this stuff out somehow, in our logical mind. If we pay attention enough and open enough, I think we could feel the way power is actually guiding us as we get more connected with intent. Just a reminder of things I've mentioned multiple times in these talks. I personally have noticed a spin that I talk about, or a whirling type energy. They have to do with the way awareness flows. It starts flowing in a particular way that actually, the way I feel and see it, it actually has a kind of feel to it, a kind of a power to it. It's kind of unique and has a quality to it, and it can actually take us somewhere. For me, I'm a kind of basic person. I say, well, I just want to go deeper into reality, so I'd like to do that. And so I feel that indeed that it does take me, and I've noticed other people too, in various ways much deeper into their meditation. So this idea that somehow I'm not that big on techniques, as I mentioned before, although I really value them and know and do my techniques to this day, because it's just so important. It just set up things in a particular way. But after a while, I think we at times want to, obviously let go enough to feel what is beyond the technique. I do feel, indeed, the technique is a way of setting things up, and a very important way of setting things up. But there's many other things involved that I'm sure you're all noticing, and maybe you'll comment on in your meditations as you go deeper. So I say even deeper, the meditation is deeper into higher dimensions in reality. The higher dimensions that Rama constantly talked about are definitely accessible to us, and it's so much fun because of the nature of our interactions. I feel with somebody like that, and that it's not a problem to go very, very deep, very quick. It simply is not. I'm going to continue to maintain that, continue to talk about that, and continue to express that. And it has to do with letting go and having fun, and not making a big deal out of things, and just knowing. It has to do with trust and confidence in ourselves and so on. That it's just not a problem. It's not a frivolous thing or a fantasy thing, but it's actually a type of feeling that I think we all start noticing over time. And I think it's important for this topic because it also helps us easier to flow with intent, flow with power. Intent, I think, it brings up power in a particular way. And I'm sure we're all going to have our own idea about what's going on, and I don't think anybody really can ultimately describe it. We just can do the best we can because we're reasoning creatures, of course. We want to do that, but we're dealing with the inconceivable, of course, we all know. And so once again, letting go is so important to that. I've noticed, as I mentioned other times, the subtle winds are very subtle and subtle physical. It's not a physical wind, but a subtle physical wind. I'm sure there's a counterpart in the physical, interesting connection there. But these subtle winds have to do with the flow of awareness and intent. And something important to me, because I watched, I've talked about this before, but briefly, I was so fascinated in the meditation hall with Rama, cleaning out all our aura. The outer layers are even deeper than the outer layers. I mean, the aura, as we all know, it's many layers to it, quite complex. That it would all be cleaned up, the grit of our day, and also the impressions and potentially making inroads into the samskaras and the and patterns, deep patterns, would be cleaned out to a certain extent in that first 30 minutes, some 15, 30 minutes, sometimes 45 minutes. He wouldn't say a word. As you remember, walking into the meditation hall, he just would bring on the music, meditate not say anything. He'd be meditating for 45 minutes sometimes. Wow, do we all notice how that? And I was so fascinated by that, and still am. But it's something to do with my particular, something to do with intent that really I was drawn to. And I've noticed these things actually, the subtle winds at times, well, many times actually. And when I did meditation class in Manhattan, actually, maybe it's just a side comment, but it has to do with intent, that what we are passionate about and really focused on and actually really want in it's not necessarily desire, but it's just a real kind of want to know, it's just a deep kind of knowing that we want to interact with, that has effects involving intent, I believe, I feel. Just a few other things, and we'll start discussion. I mentioned other talks, the mind literally, we empty our mind, and that's what we're working on. It's definitely noticeable as we progressively empty our mind. And as I mentioned in a few talks back, there literally can be a type of folding in of the mind that takes place that I know about actually directly, and I'm just so fascinated about it. I mentioned it actually in the talk. I'm mentioning it now, just to give a few examples of what happens when the awareness field is affected. Some amazing things can happen. And I'm going to allude to that in some of my questions. We're going to get to it. Luminosity starts seeping in, and it can happen in the deep sleep state. It could happen at any time where luminosity progressively sleeps in, which is very important to have loosen things up in our subphysical and so on. And obviously makes it a lot easier to eventually be in higher light and to be immersed in that light is very doable and very wonderful, and as you all know, and it's a revealing, as I mentioned. I like the word revealing rather than a doing. It's something that's actually literally, as we all know, already occurring, and has to do with the paradox of course, of the way I feel, the way awareness segments itself, where it at times does not feel to be the case that it's always occurring. But it is, as we all know. So, good. Let me see where our time is. We're going to have a discussion. So I hope we're probably going over a little over, unfortunately. Fortunately, as usual, we're going to get that meditation in. But our discussion is so important. It's really central to hear what everybody has to say. And I have some questions, but does anybody have anything at this time to say anything, a question, or express themselves in any way before I actually ask some questions? Please go ahead.
I have a quick question.
Oh, good. Is it Sharon?
Yeah.
Or Tara? Oh, Sharon. Is everybody still on the call? We have Ian, Sharon, Mark, Alfred, L.
Yep.
For sure. And Tara. Everybody's hanging in there. I'll be darned. There you go. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sharon.
I'm trying to picture it, what you had said that intent is different than will. I'm just sort of trying to, I guess, just separate it in my head of in what way does I want to be able to feel intent? Like, how does it feel different than will? Like, how would you describe it, I guess?
Very good question, Sharon. Yeah, I actually have really thought about that a fair amount. Actually, continually, we'll be looking at that. But it's interesting that actually in the Castaneda material, Don Juan was expressing to Castaneda that in the past teachers and practitioners and so on, which would literally, I think, goes back thousands of years in that lineage, that type of knowledge, that they did originally think it was will. And then later they stopped calling it will and decided that it was really something quite different, intent. And so will is associated, and this is my opinion, of course, is in my mind is more associated with the third chakra, the navel center, and it's and it actually happens to also be will. Actually, as a reminder, also happens to be one of the 8 points, that major 8 points of the human that Don Juan has expressed to Carlos Castaneda. So the 8 points is actually one of them is will, and it is and so that's it's almost in my, and one more thing I'll say about it, and maybe some other people can comment, is that in my mind it has more to do with actually a willfulness associated with self-effort, a type of power, as I mentioned, associated with the navel center that is deliberate and associated. I think it's actually quite different from intent, but maybe that's the best I can do at the moment. But I know we all have our opinion about what will might be, but I know it is much different than intent. So that's a really good question. And I think over time we'll be able to. I'll keep that in mind over some other talks. We'll be able to make the distinction clearer. That's it's a good comment and question.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Hi, Jeff. You mentioned so many things, and I just a very short. I wanted to. You talked about intent and shifting your assemblage point, and I know that when your life is tight and you are engaging and there's a moment where you actually connect to eternity, and then kind of eternity teaches you at the same time, and there's this bond that's created, and all of a sudden, you go into just a different world, beautiful plains of light, and everything is new. Everything is, we've all experienced this. So there's our side, which is what you talked about with intent, will, all these things, so that your connection with eternity, it opens at some point where you're able to learn, and that conversation back and forth it's important. I remember when I was studying with Rama, and I would, after meditation, I'd be in some outrageous state of consciousness, and I would think, well, that was, I focused really hard that night, and I learned to, I stopped my thought, but really almost all of it was Rama, when I got really out there. And, Rama is still around, even though he's not in the body. That force is still there. Sometimes I feel his signature. And it's that kind of connection I want to keep. So I just wanted to ask any advice on that. You brought up so many things.
Oh yeah, I really appreciate that. That's great. Wow, yeah, the connection to Rama is so key. I hope I have made that clear. We constantly talk about that, or somebody like that. Some people, obviously, but we also know, Paul, we're a little bit biased, of course, each one here, I'm sure. But wow, what a connection! That is so important. I can't say enough about that. But some people see, depending on who comes on the call, you see I talk about these things in a certain level of abstraction at times, because some people, are not aware of that kind of thing, or do not wish to connect with Rama for some reason, and it's totally up to them, and I never push that on anybody, and because it's not appropriate, so I talk a little bit in the abstractions, but for people on this call, wow, connection with Rama is of the utmost importance, and because we know, I used to, just another example, as a teenager, reading the books and everything like all of us, I always used to think, well, how do you, they talk about that connection with a teacher like that, but it's hard to get it, when you're younger, or even when we're older. But without the teacher, I think we all would potentially, and please express yourself when you talk, each one, we almost know it's literally, oh boy, without the teacher like that, it's almost, wow, it's hard to do this kind of stuff. To connect deeply into reality and eternity, the things you're talking about. Wow, it's very difficult. It can be done apparently, but wow, it's so difficult. So the teacher is of the utmost importance, and all the classical literature obviously talks about that. It takes a while before I realized it, and I said, oh, no, I could do this myself somehow, really. Then of course we learn it's almost impossible. But there's hope, hope for everybody, hope for everybody in the world and all of us. And when we can connect with somebody like that. And then, of course, the idea is, and I'll leave it, is to be able to express it. That's controversial, what that expression might be like, and as I mentioned before briefly in the talk. But, yeah, it's, wow, that's a big topic. Big question. Thank you for saying that, Ian. It's just opened up a gigantic, discussion right in itself, in those things you said. I hope, I hope that was a little bit helpful.
Yeah. You actually answered one of my questions, because when we all want to get to the states of mind that he used to take us in all the time when we were in the room with him, and sometimes it would just happen, and it was effortless because there was you're just merging with his light and his being, and but other times it was more difficult, and you would have to kind of force yourself, and the best is to be sort of in between, where there's like a doorway that opens up, where there's a perfect balance there, and then you become something different. for that period of time. I mean, words break down. But you said so many different things, and it just reminded me of those, kind of pulls me back into those places just for a moment. And it gives me hope, that, because we all want to feel that way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, that is. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I've been talking too long. I know there's a lot of people here, so somebody else probably should speak. But thank you, Jeff.
Oh, sure. Yeah. You're welcome. Big topic, and please jump in. Anybody here? I would love to hear. Definitely want to hear from each person, each of you on the call. And more than once too. So this is great. So I feel good about the call. I think this is good about all these calls. But I think we got to, like I said, this intent is wow. Please pay attention. You all are. I can tell. And there's something very important, I think happening, and we can all, tap into that, which is the whole point of these calls, really. I think Tara has something to say. That's what I think.
Well, I was just chuckling because I think I have been in that same place where, at the time I was like, hey, I had a pretty good meditation there, It's like totally not me at all. So that kind of made me chuckle, and because I've totally been there myself. And, I guess I have those. I wonder that myself, just had to maintain that. And I guess that's kind of where for me, the stalking comes in. Like, what can I do to change it up and keep it, maintain that connection and keep it fresh and keep it, new. Oh.
Yeah, very important. Yeah, that's it's interesting. Yeah, that's what hitting on a major thing about the purpose of these talks is really to indeed to do that very thing in various forms. But the good news is not an issue. I was talking to somebody on the call here. It's really that's my attitude, and not a big deal, not an issue. Just it's done. It's a done deal. It's like we remember Rama talking about, and something might come up and to make. Somebody had to make a breakthrough or needed some ideas about how to transform a particular way, and then Ron said, different things he might say, but the impression I always got was it's done. It's not really a big deal, And I think we have a tendency, obviously, each of us, somehow through doubt and through different ways to turn it into an obstacle. That's what I've noticed in myself and others. But what the good news is, once again. And after all these years, everybody on the call, in fact, has been at it. All of us been on the call at it. I think we're slowly realizing, or not so slowly, realizing that we can do some amazing things. It's all there for us. It's all in in the perceptual field. There's all these we can feel it more and more in the mind and deep in the perceptual field, and that we have access, and we can express ourselves, obviously looking for a very positive and very happy type of expression. Good news is, after so many years, we do drop a lot of that ego kind of stuff and the kind of strange kind of stuff that gets in the way and actually can affect energy, some really powerful, great energy, and actually can kind of block it and obscure it and muddy it in different ways. But we know as in the aging process that we get so much more life experience that goes away. I feel it can go almost completely away. It'll go completely away, and it's especially important, as we know, to be able to handle power properly. We need to be very clean about it, and we all know that, like inside and out. But it's still a work in progress. Mark, anything you'd like to say? I sometimes put people on the spot. Mark's in deep silence. I can feel that. And
sorry,
I get something on it.
I had my phone muted.
Oh, here you go.
I think will is just making a decision, and intent is using that will to focus on what it is you were going to do. Like you're going to make a change, you use your will to decide, I'm going to make this change. The intent is keeping a sharp focus on that and not letting yourself be distracted from it. That's how I see it.
Nice. Very nice. Thanks, Mark. And we haven't heard from Al. Anything to say?
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
I guess if we're going to stick on that topic of will versus intent.
Or you can talk about anything else. Yeah, that would be great for anything that we talked about.
Yeah, well, I'll just put my example out there as my 2 cents. I look at will. If we look at both of them together, I look at will as sort of like climbing steps, taking steps that you need to maybe go to a higher level of understanding. But the intent is sort of like saying you want to open the door. But you're just making that intention. But when that door swings open, you have to be ready for whatever's on the other side and be open to it. Wow. And let your higher self interpret it and just be, like you said, relaxed about it.
Very good. Yeah, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, it's basically kind of what I thought would be, to conceptualize it, kind of what I thought the difference between the will and intent was. But intent is so much more than that, I think, and has a lot to do with just being really comfortable with who you are and following your intuition and, having a trust in it. It's sort of palpable at the same time as not being definable. It's palpable when it touches you, but it's really undefinable on the other side. And I think intent, it stretches into the second attention, and you can't really define where it's going to take you. But I guess that's part of the fun.
Wow, nice. I like that. Thank you. Right, we don't know. I use the word unpredictable. Like tonight's class, everything's unpredictable about nature, where all this is taking us in this hour, in this period, and also after the class. But in general, what Al said. Yeah, that's half the fun. I agree with you. Thank you, Al. I'm going to ask. I have 4 questions, but the 4 questions. How's everybody? I'm going to pick one. See where that takes us. Don't want to keep you too late. I know we have some people on the East Coast, but is everybody doing okay so far?
Yeah.
However, we definitely want to get a certain amount of meditation in, so I hope that's okay with everybody. But obviously, go ahead, please. Oh, okay. Somebody was going to say something. Just looking at the 4 questions, which one to ask. Well, let's see if we get any comments on this. And then maybe, what are your feelings about your particular connecting link with intent, or anything you want to express about that? Without getting too personal, but obviously I'm talking about you as an individual. So already a few things have been mentioned in regard to that question, I feel. But any comments about that? And see if that takes us anywhere.
I'll try it. This
Sure.
is Sharon. I was thinking about it when you spoke of it. Just coincidentally today, I came across an article on a meditation site, and there was a little blurb about intent. And the guy writing it said that regardless if you're going into a meditation or you're going into an everyday sort of situation, you want to set an intent for what you'd like the outcome to be. And I think the guy writing it was more akin to the way our mindsets are, like a little bit more to the magical and less to like the traditional mindfulness aspects of meditation. So he said, you really want to make a decision of the intent of where you'd like it to be, because if you go into a situation that you'd like a result from and you don't set a specific intent, it's more apt to you're more apt to be led by unconscious pulls or unconscious selves that are sort of just running in the background. So that sort of, I thought it was interesting because it came up today based on the topic that was coming tonight, and I thought I feel like so much of my life is generated by just unconscious routines and drives and fears, and that maybe if I did set an intent more directly, it's sort of a directing the energy in a specific direction rather than having it, say, scattered. Does that make sense? It's a little late, so I apologize if I'm all...
No, everybody's been meditating well. That was great. Yeah, I got that to an extent. And, you're actually talking about that's not to be said about that. Because there is, I think that Al was also indicating a little bit about that. Interesting, he did it in an interesting way, about the interplay between being open to this inconceivable type force. At the same time, it's affected by our particular purpose, and it's a deliberate type of. And I think that's what you're indicating also. Yeah, so that's another big topic, another huge thing. And so you hit on a really major thing, and because you're right. I mean, like I said, just an example, and other people on the call can maybe come up with something. I was interested, as I mentioned real briefly, that what Ron was doing with cleaning out people's aura. So obviously, I developed a certain deliberateness and purposefulness in that regard, and that it did affect actually my eventual interaction with the actual subtle wind that I was talking about. And so that interplay is what I think you're indicating to a certain extent is very interesting and very important.
Yeah, I think too, and Al, correct me if I'm wrong, there is sort of like this unknown if you don't control it, which is so sort of fun, like, all right, let me just see what's going to happen, versus like I need a specific situation to work out because it's, I'm in battle mode, so I want to direct the energy towards an intent. I don't know, I think there might be just different options to live from based on situation, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's I mean, other people can comment too. I think it is unique to each of us. It is a self-discovery type thing, and I'm continuing to work on it myself too. It's I'm not trying also in my own way to come up with a deeper understanding myself about what is that interplay, or what is that, how do we handle intent, and where do we consciously come into play, and how do we affect that connection, and it's really big, but I think you're on a really interesting track, and it is definitely pertinent to this what we're talking tonight. So does anybody else can comment on that particular aspect that she's talking about? Or have any?
Hey, Jeff.
Yes.
Yeah, I had something to add to that. So, and this really comes from personal experience, but I'm happy to share it. So, in a couple of Rama's talks, and I remember him, he talks about the inner worlds, and what I've experienced is if you make a bid for intent, you intend something, that you should pay very close attention to what's going on, what I think Rama would consider to be the inner worlds. I also call that the dream world. And I think what was being referenced before about maybe some blocks that would come up, if you make a strong bid for something, you're going to have to expect some resistance. And, it doesn't always mean just because you intend it, you're definitely going to score that, whatever it is. So you may, in fact, do that. You may break through and do it, but you also have to expect sometimes to get resistance. And only by self-discovery and really being very, very high sense of self-honesty can you accept those things and then defeat them. If that's your purpose, if that's what you want to do, that's the challenge. And I've had experiences where that came out in dreaming. So I made a bid for something, and then I would see what I was up against in my dreaming. And I just wanted to share that because it just happened recently.
Yeah, thank you. Interesting kind of. Yeah, you're also, me when you're talking, I'm going, wow. Yeah, there's just so many aspects of this. As I said, this subject is huge. So, we'll probably have to approach this again many times in some subsequent talks. But thank you for that, Al, and thank you, Sharon, hitting on some important things. And anybody else on this question? And we'll briefly do one more question, and then we'll do our meditation night. I really appreciate everybody. Yeah, definitely expressing yourself. It's just great. Like I said, I just already can tell how helpful this is going to be to people. So I really want to thank you already for that. But any other comments on this particular question before we move to our second question? And we'll do the second question just briefly so we can want to keep people too late. Well, jump in anytime. Why don't I try? I'll try this one. I think it's obviously. Let me try this. See if we can go anywhere with this. How would you go about adjusting your perceptual field so that you can go deeper into reality? So it is along the lines of things we're discussing here. So once again, any comments? And how would you go about adjusting your perceptual field? And which may tie into the last question, which is like, what are the implications of slowly realizing that our world is merely one of many types of perception? So obviously, that's an adjustment in perception when the world goes away. So any ideas or thoughts on that? Of course, we're suggesting that our connection with intent, that the perceptual field is affected some way. our perceptual field. An example.
Well,
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, wouldn't Don Juan say, change your behavior patterns? Because you're so routinized in your behavior patterns that, you're stuck. So do something that's not you. Maybe that's selfless giving in a way that you didn't do it before, or it's something else, but change your behavior patterns to change your perceptual field.
Wow, excellent. Yes, that has to do with stalking, which is a huge subject. But yeah, changing your behavior patterns and selfless giving, I like the way you connected that. I don't know if I quite looked at it that way, and I think that's really, really interesting. So, because that is a type of change in behavior for people, definitely for me. Selfless giving is, it's a huge, as I mentioned, it's a huge, powerful, selfless giving, wow. That's one of the 5 major modalities. It's huge. So thank you, Al. That was very nice. Very good to point that out.
Jeff, I'll just add something very quickly. My first year with Rama was very magical, and I tried as hard as I could. I was really inspired, and I would just focus on those chakras. We would do 3 chakras, and I would really focus on them and try to do my best and have my back straight, everything. And I remember him saying at one point, he said, "Oh, by the way, on the last song, just let go." And I thought, well, that's an interesting concept, just to let go. So I tried it. And first time, I had a little trouble, but then somewhere, during one of the meditations, everything just stopped. And I just went into another reality where there was no thought, no me. I mean, I couldn't even move. And some of that, I've kind of lost over the years, because you just kind of get into you know how to do this, you know how to do that. But I want to get back to that special, that where it just naturally happened. Well, that's it. Very short, but.
No, thank you. Like I said, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Is that Sharon or
no.
Carol?
Yeah. No, it's Sharon. Was that Ian? Ian, is
that
you? So that and what you had said before are absolutely the whole reason I am here and found Jeff and tried to reconnect, because that magic from 1991 and the perceptual breakthroughs and the things I experienced, I lost, and somehow I thought, I can probably try to get him back myself, but almost 30 years later, I can't. So it's like, how do you get back those magical experiences, and trying to recreate the steps in my mind? And so exactly the things that you had said before, and now I'm like, it has to do with, Jeff, what you were asking about the perceptual shift. It's like, well, I guess the way it created it in the past was Rama did it for me. So I don't know. I just wanted to say that everything you said, I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly why I'm here, and happy to be here.
I feel like everything that all the years I studied with Rama, I feel like he's put seeds in me, and all of us, and they're still there, and they're accessible. But it's like, years ago, you had everything labeled where to go, and now you kind of you have to kind of, just this whole conversation has brought back, I'm starting to find little drawers to pull out, and that's where it is, or
right.
And I think everything is still there inside of us, and the thing is to keep everything tight, and be able to just bring that back and then take it to a level where you own it and it's yours. Because sometimes, even now, I go into great states of attention, but then sometimes it's harder. Definitely doing things like this really helps.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Like, can we not all trigger the seeds in each other in some way? Like,
yeah, that's good. Well, that's why a lot of the stuff Jeff talked about, I was like going, oh, yes, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff.
Oh, no, you're quite well. Oh, you're quite well, and thank you. No, I really like the things everybody's saying. What came up with letting go, I was saying, oh, what a novel idea. Letting go. Yeah, that's what, and it's so, and I mean that I'm trying to be funny, but yeah, I mean, it's funny how we all forget how to simply let go, right? But I've learned a little bit about that. It's actually a deep, in our being, something lets go. We really can't force that. But at least from my view, but boy, do things let go. So the good news is everybody's been so affected, even if there were a few moments around in my view, that it's not. It's another thing that came up when you both were sharing it. When we were just talking, is like, not a problem. That's my new mantra. Is not a problem. It's all, like Ian was saying, it's all there. It really, as I'm saying, and we'll continue saying these talks. You hit on another thing, which is, like I said, is a major reason for these talks, is that yes, it's all there for us, right at our fingertips. I used an example, actually, I mentioned to somebody on the call about winning the lottery. I feel everybody here has won the lottery. They have their ticket. Some have not cashed it in. I'm not talking about people here, but in general who had that lottery ticket. And there's other teachers where they have lottery tickets. But some people have not cashed it in. Others have partially cashed it in. And some have really cashed it in. And it's all there for us. It's all really up to us. It's all really there. It's not, really, as I said, it's not even a big issue. It's just a matter of having fun, letting go. And it just comes back. And I'm going to talk more and more about that. So thanks for bringing it up, because it's something I really want to emphasize that I've actually noticed over the years, how it's all there. It's a matter of well, we'll talk about that more in other talks. It's there's plenty of hope there. That's the good news. And you made a really interesting point, I think both Sharon and Ian, that what Rama is here is definitely in real time here. And we have various connections with them, depending on each of us, how we connect with somebody like that. But it is different, as we know. But once again, I don't think it's I better leave it at that. I think I just feel it's very, very doable to access whatever we wish to access with Rama in whatever form that takes, that connection with Rama. But also, I just don't feel it's that big of a deal. But we'll talk more about that in other talks. So, before our meditation, if you're just interested, Mark and Tara, if you wanted to say, it'd be great to hear anything you wanted to say before our last meditation.
Well, I think related to the question about adjusting your perceptual field, I know I kind of look for opportunities just throughout life, I guess, throughout my day, like to connect or to notice or to shift myself, and whether it's like if I'm talking to somebody, just sort of being fully present and not with my own agenda, or just being in nature, or doing a good job on a project, whatever it is. I find that if I keep looking for those opportunities, and kind of helps me, it's like there's always an opportunity to do that.
Wow, thank you guitar, it brings back to this idea of the Castaneda type stuff with our centimeter of chance and these different. I feel there every single moment. That was a specific kind of context when we talk about our centimeter of chance, and I'm sure we all remember that or can reference that. The material, but I feel personally that every single moment, of course, is a tremendous opportunity, tremendous openings. Is every moment, you know what I mean? And especially once again because of the nature of the way we've all been restructured, transformed by one of these wonderful teachers, Rama. Wow, it makes it that much even more possible to take advantage of these openings that really are everywhere. Interesting enough, and so I like what you said because I definitely agree. That's part of mindfulness practice. A very important part of mindfulness practice, of course, is being mindful. Being aware, being attentive all the time. Really, it's not that difficult to do, to be attentive all the time, and to be. I talk about the 24-hour thing. I am into that. Basically, being aware of what's going through our minds 24-hour days in the dream plane, and whether in the dream plane or not, and that it's really important. Tidying up, throwing out those pieces of paper. Wow, did I learn? Mm-hmm. I'm not very good at that, but even that one, I literally had felt throwing away one piece of paper that I had, extraneous piece of paper, document or unmarked or whatever it might be that I kept for 5-10 years, whatever, longer. But I can literally feel. I'm sure he should be having the similar experience of feeling the release of energy, the release of some type of energy, which is so important, of freeing up more available energies. Also, among many other things in this topic of tonight, it's a huge topic: how to free up, how to store power, how to free up energy, how to unbind ourselves from descriptions and thoughts, and it's just the amount of energy released. It's unbelievable to be able to change your perceptual field and obviously get into other types of orientations and apprehensions. I have in my notes here. I was going to mention that, but I think about it all the time. Actually, what you just said. I think guitar and Mark always has at least one word, I think, to sum everything up. If I'm not mistaken.
No, not tonight.
Well, we'll have our meditation. Definitely went over here, that's for sure. Thank you for hanging in there. We better just do 2 tracks, I think, unless everybody wants to do 3, but it's getting really late, right? So why don't we do 3? Well, we better keep it tight. Can everybody do 2 tracks? The last 2 tracks to a mandala of light, which would be track 5 and 6, Lord Vishnu's Fourth Vision and Pacific Coast Sundance. Interesting names for these songs, huh? I remember Rama talking about that. That sometimes he wants to come up with the names, and sometimes they left it up to Tarzan, the musicians. He says, that's why I think I'm gonna be naming some of these tracks. So I don't know who named these particular ones. But I was going to say before our meditation, then we'll touch briefly after the meditation, that, I can feel it. And I'm sure you can do. There's an interesting, because we're working with intent tonight, and I did, that was part of my purposeness, is to, I feel, to pay attention to the particular kind of energy, the kind of spin to it or power to it. I think Ian alluded to it also in one of his comments, that kind of the doors, different kind of doors opening up, and it's all there, and so really an opportunity tonight, especially, and other nights with other teachers and so on, when we all get together, something very interesting happens, and I'm feeling that. I feel it every time. It's, sometimes you feel it more, sometimes less, but tonight I think we did quite well. I really want to thank everybody. So we'll take us somewhere, to touch into these, axis that we're all talking about. I definitely look forward to it myself in these classes. I'm mostly a participant here myself. I really look forward to the type of intent, where intent leads us in these classes. A very topic. Okay, so I will mute everybody. and then 10 seconds start with track 5, and then if we could briefly touch base after that. It's about 11 minutes. Okay. I was just going to remind everybody, in regards to building up a momentum in our meditation, we talk a lot about that. Personally, I meditate 2 candles of light, or that's what I usually choose for about another half hour to an hour tonight. I know it's going to be pretty late for people on the East Coast. And I do that for a reason. It's not an easy thing to do, but I have fun doing it. I'm sure each of you do that in your own way. And I found that this idea of building up a momentum, so we take the kind of spin, the whirl of energy that we notice here, and we even leverage that and optimize that by even more meditation. This is something I noticed, and if you happen to choose to do that, in particular tonight. So it's a certain amount of self-effort involved, but I always have fun with it, and it's an interesting what happens over the next few days, or a week or so after that. So I just thought I would mention that. And any comments before we go for tonight? I want to thank everybody for being on the call, and I really had fun and having fun, and I just want to thank you for all your particular expressions on the call tonight.
Thanks for doing it.
Oh, thanks, Tara. Quite welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Ann. And great to have you on the call. So, and just have fun. Once again, the access is all there. We're going to talk about that more. But no problem. No problem in regards to access. I maintain that. I'm going to continue to maintain that. Not a problem.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Oh, you're welcome, Sherry. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Sure.
You too.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.